Madam Secretary, good to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Reflecting back on the last 4 years for you, are you satisfied with what the Biden administration was able to accomplish in one term?
Oh, well, we would have loved a second term to continue the trajectory, but the amazing amount of work has resulted in historic amounts, for example, of clean energy generation in this country. We will have added, last year, it'll show that we will have added almost 30 Hoover dams worth of clean power to our electric grid as a result of the passage of these laws, the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which provided incentives for developers to go gangbusters, and they have been. So that's historic amount. We are on track to getting to 80% clean electric grid, meaning 80% of our electric grid being powered by clean sources by 2030, on the path to getting to 100% clean by 2035.
President Biden himself talks a lot about manufacturing, clean energy, the need to get good union-paying jobs. Yeah. It's a part of a lot of his speeches and public rhetoric. What's your sense of how satisfied he is on the sort of energy and labor front?
Well, first, I know he's impatient, and he would have loved to have had a second term to see this more to completion. I think he feels very good about the emphasis that he placed on making sure that workers, union or not, had good paying jobs that they could raise a family on. And that has happened in this energy sector. We've got over 400,000 jobs that have been created over the past 4 years in the clean energy space, projected to be much higher because of all of these announcements of factories that are coming online. So I think he feels very good about that.
Thinking back, you ticked through a lot of achievements. What is the biggest missed opportunity to you?
While we did all of these laws to be able to push forward this clean energy development in the United States, the one thing that didn't get through Congress was a consistent investment in the electric grid. And so we really need to, and I hope the next, the incoming administration will look at that, because honestly, this is the largest machine on the planet is the electric grid. It's just huge. And if we don't have consistent investment, then you have, wires that are on poles that are put up in the 1950s. All of these extreme weather events obviously show extreme vulnerability. We need to think of it like our national highway system. We have a federal and state partnership on our roads. We need to do the same thing with the grid.
Why should the rest of the world take American leadership on global emissions seriously if there seems to be a sort of flip-flop every time a new party comes into power?
It's a really great question. And at the last meeting that we had with a number of the energy ministers after the election, my message to them was, look, it shouldn't matter who's in the White House. This is a global effort, right? You see what's happening in Los Angeles. Well, that's replicated in countries all across the world at any given time. And it's not just fires, it's all other kinds of extreme weather. So they feel it. So it's not like you can't move until you have the United States. The rest of the world is going to continue to move forward on addressing climate change. This is an existential crisis for all of us. And so the message that we sent was, you must lead, and to the private sector and to other non-governmental organizations and to states and subnational entities, you have got to continue leading. And there's a whole effort in the United States. We are still in coalition, which includes all of those, to say we're not waiting for the White House. We're going to continue to move.
So does that mean that allies in Europe and elsewhere might need to do more if the U.S. takes a back seat?
I think everybody needs to do more anyway. We have, already surpassed the last year's, again, the warmest year on record, the hottest year on record. So yeah, everybody needs to do more if we are going to slow this trajectory. It is really, it is a crisis, and we need people to act as though it's a crisis, the climate crisis. And so our allies need to step up, even though the White House may be taking a back step, because, it's a one-term president. There will be another opportunity for leadership, but this crisis isn't going away.
And what role do you see China playing in addressing global emissions and its relationship with the U.S.?
China big-footed the United States, a decade ago or a little bit more in basically poaching solar panels, manufacturing of them. They have a strategic plan to corner the market on all of these technologies. And we just can't sit back and let that happen. And that's what the Inflation Reduction Act does, is it provides the ability for the United States to get in the game and to compete and to not just stand by and allow our economic adversaries to win.
Was that Inflation Reduction Act on a big enough scale to compete with China?
Yeah, it is. It's on a really important scale. Let me just, can I show you a prop?
Please
I don't know if you'll
yes.
be able to zoom in on this, but the map of the United States with all of these dots, different colors depending on the technology, show the number of factories just in the past 2.5 years, actually since the start of the Biden administration, but largely in the past 2.5 years, that have announced they are opening up in the United States, that are moving from other countries to locate here, from China and other places, but also that are expanding in the United States. So, some of these are solar, some of this is nuclear, some of it is wind, some of it is EVs, some of it is batteries. But the bottom line is all of these factories coming to the United States as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act. The incentives there are irresistible. The United States has become an irresistible place to invest and open up shop. And that's why it is so critical for the law to remain in place. It is a 10-year law. These decisions have been made. And here's the irony about it. It's the Trump administration who will be in office when all of this hiring occurs. So it would be political malpractice to undo all of these investments in these communities all across the country.
There's a lot in red states, for example.
85% are in red districts. 85%. So, this is something that benefits small towns across the country, people who have been forgotten, people who've had factories close and have felt like there's no place for their children to get jobs. These are future-facing jobs. And, for communities that have powered our nation for the past 100 years, this is an opportunity for them to power our nation for the next 100 years, but in clean energy.
So your message to the new Republican Congress is leave the Inflation Reduction Act alone.
Totally, especially if the rhetoric is about beating China. Are you going to allow all of these factories to go back and allow China to win this investment? How crazy would that be, really? This is a $23 trillion global market, and we can allow it to go to other countries. Or we can say, hell no, we're going to have it made here, stamped made in America, made by American workers, and have our people employed in those industries.
You're from Michigan, an important automaker state, the big state. Part of the tax credits and subsidies in this legislation we're talking about are intended to boost the electric vehicle market. Elon Musk, the Tesla founder, a close ally of the incoming president, has said that he is supportive of doing away with all tax credits for electric vehicles. What's your response?
Well, my response is, are we going to compete with China, or are we going to allow China to have this? If you get rid of these incentives, then what's the incentive for companies to build those vehicles here? It's part of a holistic strategy. You have to have a demand-side strategy and a supply-side strategy. China is building vehicles at so cheap that they will find ways, even if there's tariffs, they will find ways to get them into the United States. Are we going to compete in this, or are we going to let China take it? As of last month, there was a 12% increase in electric vehicle purchases last year, year over year, which is great. We've got over 200,000 publicly available charging stations in the United States, 1,000 per week of ports being added. So the range anxiety that people were concerned about, that's going to diminish. So that strategy of winning in electric vehicle making, I don't know why we would want to lose that.
As you said, you're a former big state governor. You've also been a vocal critic, I think it's fair to say, of Donald Trump in the past, saying, for example, and I'm quoting here, that he poisoned democracy after trying to overturn the 2020 election results. In just a couple of days, he'll be president again. In your view, then, how big of a threat does he pose?
Well, I guess the proof will be in the pudding. I hope that there are lessons learned. I have, I've met with my successor, and I have hope that this department, anyway, under what's my interest, will be led by somebody who is not going to be partisan, who will listen to the scientists in the national laboratories, who will be guided by the technologies that will move us forward on having reliable, affordable energy, hopefully clean. And I know they want to focus on fossil fuels as well, but I wouldn't want to see any cutting off of the clean side in this effort. So I'm hopeful that there have been lessons learned, and I'm hopeful that no matter who is in the White House, this push toward having a clean economy, an economy powered by clean energy will continue.
Well, thank you for your service, Madam Secretary, and thank you again for sitting with us.
You bet. Thanks so much.